Welcome. We have Agriculture Extension. Thanks for joining us for the architecture presentation. We're so glad you're here. Quick as a reminder, just like obviously keep your phones, close your iPads. You're here for the presentation. Thank you. And I'd like to introduce Rebecca
Wiscombe.
Okay,
Yes, Wiscombe.
Cool.
Silent B and E. Okay, I am Rebecca Wiscombe. I am a project manager at an architecture firm downtown called Cornell Collective. And I also teach the architecture rendering class at the City College. And primarily I'm here to talk about the high school design competition, but I'll give you a little bit of background on architecture, how to get into it, and a couple programs that you might be interested in that are run for specifically high school students interested in architecture. So personally, I did not start out wanting to do architecture. I actually went into UCSB as a double major in psychology and studio art. I actually did 2 years at the City College, transferred over to the UC, and then after graduating, decided that I actually did not want to do art therapy, and I wanted to kind of transition into architecture. So I got into a master's program at the Southern California Institute of Architecture in Los Angeles, and was able to do what's called an MArch 1, which means that it's a master's program for architecture with people who do not have an architecture background. So that is one thing in architecture. I've heard it referred to as an old man's profession, which doesn't necessarily mean that it's for old men, but it is a profession that you don't need to start in immediately. You can explore your options and then transfer there when you are so inclined. And there's a lot of different ways to get into architecture as a profession. So let's see. Except I don't, there we go. All right, there are three typical paths to get into architecture. You can do the Bachelor of Architecture, which is a 5-year bachelor program, which includes 5 years of undergraduate degree in an accredited school, along with 3 years of work experience. And then you have to pass the architecture registration exam, which is a series of 6 exams that are about anywhere between 4 and 5 hours each. If you are trying to get licensed in California, there is an additional 7th exam specifically for California. California is one of the stringest ARE exam programs. So if you were to move states, it's a little bit easier, but you cannot transfer your license from a different state to California unless you take the California exam. Seems like a lot of work, but you do not need a master's degree to become an architect. You do not need a PhD. You can get in with just a bachelor's. The second way of getting into architecture is the MArch program, which is the one I did, which consists of a undergraduate degree in any field you like, a 3-year graduate degree from an accredited institution, 2 years of work experience, and then the ARE. Personally, I have not yet completed my architecture registration exam, so I am not a licensed architect, so don't go telling your parents that you met a licensed architect who can do work on their house. I can, but don't tell them that. Yes?
Can you do your 2 years of work while you're getting your graduate?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you can.
It's not after.
It's not after, it just has to be in particular fields. Yes.
I don't know if you said this already, but what's ARE?
ARE is the architecture registration exam, which is that exam that I was telling you about with the six 4 to 5 hour exams that you need to complete in order to get your architecture license. Like you said, the work experience, it has to be in certain fields of study. So there is the NCARB, which is the registration board, who you register your hours in specific different fields for them. And it's something like, I think you have to have over 1,000 hours in design, over 1,000 hours in schematic design. So there's a bunch of different fields that you have to get your experience in. You can't just be like the intern going to get coffee and like expect to have those count. And then there is the third path to get into architecture, which does not require any schooling. You can get it right out of high school. Well, you can start it right after high school. On here, it's listed as an intern, but I would really call it an apprenticeship because you're learning while you work. And that involves getting 8 years of work experience and then passing your ARE. So all of them, you have to pass the ARE. It's pretty intense. I know some people who work in my field who have not passed it in like 10 years. However, the longer you take to take it out of school, the harder it is, because once you stop getting in the rhythm of like studying and taking tests, it gets harder and harder. So the 8 years work experience seems like a lot. However, I graduated my master's program in 2017. And so it's already been a long time, and I still don't have my architecture license. So it does not feel like a long time once you're doing it. Yes, you had a question?
Yeah. Is the ARE exams, are those like just one topic? Or like, you know, for the SAT, there's like 3 sections.
Mm-hmm.
Is it gonna be like that? Is it like?
It's very similar to that. It's 6 sections, and including project management, practice management, design, construction, and then there's 2 more that I cannot remember. But it is all in different categories of learning. There's a couple different ways that people recommend doing it, whether you just study it all as a whole and take them all at the end, or you can study each test individually. Yes?
What's your architecture license like giving you freedom to do?
Yeah, so it gives you the freedom to do pretty much anything. There are certain fields of studies that you have to go into if you want to like design boats or, you know, bridges or things like that. You have to know more than the general license will give you. But architects in general, with a license, you pretty much can design anything you want. When it comes to this field, interior designers can only do certain things, like you can't blow out walls, you can't add windows, you can't add structural elements. So you would need to sign off by an architect for that. Essentially, architects are in charge of a whole project, of a project as a whole. So we need to know a little bit of everything to make sure everybody is doing their job correctly and to make sure the buildings don't fall down. And at the end of the day, if a building falls down, that's on me because I'm a licensed architect and it was my responsibility to make sure everything is standing up.
You know, like the shows like Fixer Upper and Property Owners, do you think those people have their license or do they have a...
So they probably have an architect in the back checking all their drawings, creating all their drawings. They may have licenses, but normally if they do have a license, they call themselves an architect as well. They don't just call themselves contractors. You do need a contracting license as well. So there's a lot of licenses that are involved other than just architecture licenses. But I'm sure those shows have just like a background of people doing their drawings, people doing their signing off on the drawings. They have structural engineers. They have all the people. They just only show the pretty ones. Yes?
What are the different types of like architecture? Like the interior, there's like the bridges.
Yeah.
Like the different types.
So there's a lot of different types. There's actually I mean, there's multifamily residences, there's malls, there's commercial work, there's, I mean, the list goes on. So you really just have to kind of look into, if you're like super interested in building boats, like you would just need to research that for yourself and figure out what exactly is required for that. If you're interested in building bridges, you may want to look into being a structural engineer, specifically in that area. At one point in my career, which I'm still hopeful, I was looking into zoo design and habitat enclosure designs. And I found out that architecture firms just do that too. So there isn't any specific architecture firm that you need to hire specifically if you're going to be doing a certain thing. What will happen is that you will find a firm that has done something like that before, and they will find the people they need to have to make that happen. So if you're building a bridge or your building happens to have bridge-like elements, you will find a subcontractor that has that experience that you can lean on, that you can get the information from. So there's not really anything that you're not allowed to do. You're just going to have to rope in more people to help you get there. Okay, so these are the three paths to architecture license. I have actually recently heard of a partner at a design firm who just has a high school diploma, and so he has done the apprenticeship to get his license, and he is a partner at a firm, a prominent design firm in town. So it is definitely possible to get there without schooling. However, the schooling is very fun. So in order to find a school that you would need to get an accredited degree from, there is the National Architecture Accreditation Board, which has a list of all the schools that are accredited in the country, in the world. You would go here first to double check that the school that you're interested in is actually, in fact, accredited. You would just go to, this is naab.org. So a lot of these websites are .org websites. And so you would use this website, you would go to the accreditation tab, go to school search, and then a list of schools would come up. And you can search by state, you can search by name, you can, really all the schools that are accredited are on here. If you are interested in going to a particular school for architecture, please make sure it's accredited, because if it's not accredited, then you might have to either get an additional master's at an accredited school, or you would have to do that 8-year program, even if you have a degree in architecture, if it's not accredited. So I went to SCI-Arc, which is Southern California Institute of Architecture in Los Angeles. They are accredited. This is their website. Now I'm showing you this because they have studio-based education. So I'm assuming it's quite similar to here, where you have studio spaces that you can work. This is Cal Poly, but most of the architecture schools are like this, where you go into the school and you work at the school. SCI-Arc has assigned desks for everybody who is in the program, including undergrad and graduate. And you pretty much live at that desk. There's a very, it's a very communal experience. Everybody is going through the exact same things as you are, and they're like elbow to elbow in it with you. I think it's a little bit more unique in terms of schooling. There's not many fields that I know of where you have your own spot, you have your own stuff, and you work primarily at the school. I know when I went to UCSB, it was not like this at all. I did a studio art program, and I still didn't have my own dedicated space in the school. So Cal Poly is an accredited program. And this is another example of their studio spaces. So each one of these desks, that's where that student is 100% of the time. All of their things live there. They do go to classes and do lectures, but they are studio-based courses as well. And then all of this accumulates into a senior thesis, which is a big project that both master's students and bachelor students complete at the end of their studies. And it takes the entire year, if not more. We did a whole year of ours plus a semester before just to plan it. Look, you pin up, you present, and it's culmination of a lot of work and lack of sleep. So this is UCLA has an accredited program, and it's the same kind of idea. All of these are studio-based learning programs. Now, for things that you can do now, there is summer studios at a lot of these colleges. SCI-Arc has what's called a design immersion days, which high school students that are interested in going into architecture can complete in the summer program. This one is actually, I can't remember if it was this one or the next one, but it is also open to, they have one that's also open to professionals looking into changing to architecture. So they have Design Immersion Days, which is for high school students who are interested, and it's a summer program. And then this also helps you develop portfolios. So you don't necessarily need to go to any of these schools after completing their summer programs, but it's a really good way of developing your portfolios if you're interested in applying for an architecture program. This one is I believe this one is the UCLA Teen Architecture Studio. And this one also is the same summer program to develop portfolios and really get a feel of what architecture is like, architecture school is like in particular. This one is Cal Poly. This one is open to students 15 years and older. So you do not have to graduate high school in order to do some of these programs. So that is kind of concludes what I wanted to talk to you about versus in terms of schooling and architecture, getting into architecture. Do we have any questions about that aspect before I move on? Okay, so what I'm actually here to talk to you about is the high school design competition that is run by the Architectural Foundation of Santa Barbara. And this is a design competition that takes place on February 28th, and it is instead of school. So you would come to us, you would set up we are there for 6 hours. We would give you a design problem, and then you would come up with a design solution, and then we would pick some winners. The competition is in Goleta and in Santa Maria. So if you know anybody up in the valley who would be interested in doing this competition, please let them know. There are cash prizes. So the first place person gets $300, second $200, third $150, and then the runners up get $75. And then each person who qualifies for the final round, so 12 people in total will qualify for the final round, which they will present to a jury in order to, be judged, will get $50. I believe that was correct. So for this design competition, you do not need to know how to draw. You do not need to know anything about architecture. I will be there along with another colleague who is able to help you with how to read a scale, what pencils to use, like the general order of operations of how to design. The only thing that you really need to have is ideas and then a way to get across those ideas on paper. Because the initial judging, people will look at the paper that you turn in without you around, and that's how they'll pick the finalists. And then you get to explain yourself if you become a finalist. I might be a little bit biased, but I think there has been some pretty cool design prompts. One year we did a tiny house in the back of a property. Another year we did a whole campus plan of a school with dorms and dining commons, and I mean, it was pretty cool. There's another year we did a whole redesign of a downtown area. So there's a bunch of different design prompts that I think that are pretty relevant to the time period and the area that we're in. Do I have any questions about this? Okay, so registration is free. You would go to the Architectural Foundation website, which is afsb.org, and go to the education tab and then find the high school design competition. Registration information is available directly on this website, and the design competition itself will be at Direct Relief on that morning of the 28th. Yeah, 28th. And then the finalist competition will be in St. Ynez on March 4th, which is the Saturday. Okay. So that is all I have. Any questions about anything? Yes.
At the competition, are all materials provided?
All the materials are provided. You're welcome to bring, if you have special markers that you want to bring or special like drawing things, you are definitely able to bring those. However, everything will be there for you. Yes.
So at the competition, basically, you're given a prompt and you have to draw it right on the spot there.
Yes, so you'll have 6 hours. So it's not you don't have to draw it in like a typical class time period. You can take your time. Food will be provided. There'll be morning, a breakfast in the morning, and then there is a lunch provided as well. However, there wasn't any coffee.
I was wondering, Ava, you did this competition last year, right? Would you tell us a little bit about your experience and also about the architecture club that you run on campus?
Last year, I think we did the campus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the campus design.
That was pretty cool. I know it seems like a long time, 6 hours, but I think it goes by really quickly. And then I went to St. Ynez afterwards. That was pretty cool, getting to meet like 4 real architects and having them judge my drawing. That was pretty cool. And yeah, I also run the architecture club, which meets Wednesdays in Mr. Leeson's room. We do like drawings, sculpture making, stuff like that.
So Wednesdays in Mr. Gleason's room is the architecture club. Cool. What did you say, what is that?
What room?
Mr. Gleason's room, what room?
Oh, and
A3, it's like right around the corner
It's like
here.
you walk through that pipe hole is the first one, right?
And you guys meet every Wednesday?
Huh?
You guys meet every Wednesday? Yeah. Okay. Who thinks they might do the competition? I would do it if I were you. Yeah, that's awesome.
If anything, it gets you free food and a day out of class.
Spread the word. And I will send out, I know I've sent out an email already with some links to the website and other info, but I'll send those out again next week just so that you have it in your email handy. Mr. Kaiser's also taking the videos, we'll send out the video presentation.
And then if you explore further on this website, there's information about kind of what people did last year. And then there's also some kind of like tutorial videos on just kind of get you started on like what to expect in terms of like what drafting is and how to do it. There are some things like we don't require T-squares or triangles are super helpful, but like it's a little bit more lax than a typical like drafting session would be. I know one student a couple years ago did like a cartoon kind of theme where like they were really good at drawing anime, so they kind of did that like kind of to express their ideas. So it is pretty open. Any type of like drawing skills that you have, or you know, any way that you can get across the design would be perfectly fine. Yes.
What's the website again?
The website is afsb.org. So it's Architectural Foundation of Santa Barbara. That's what it stands for. So you can remember that a little easier.
And many of you all already have drafting skills from Ms. Worth's class. I know the freshmen are doing drafting right now, I think, and the juniors did drafting last year. So good opportunity to apply those skills that you've already learned in classes.
Yes, and also too, like if you don't remember how to use a scale, we can help you.
Final questions? All right, round of applause.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah, no worries.
If you guys have final questions, you're welcome to come up and talk to Rebecca. Or to hang out for
Yes, I can hang out for a minute. That's